What's up, Internet? My name is Attack Slug, and welcome back to my Raw reactions for the week of October the 19th, Monday Night Raw, and we're going to get into what happened on Raw. This should be a somewhat shorter, I keep saying that, but somewhat shorter reactions video, because obviously I will have up my Hell in the Cell predictions video on Friday, and this was the go-home show for Hell in the Cell. So, how did they choose to open up their go-home show at Hell in a Cell with Stone Cold Steve Austin? Now, this episode of Raw seemed like old guys and six-man tag matches was this episode of Raw. And so they were kind of just, hey, we're in Texas, and we're just going to have all these old guys and six-man tag matches. So, out comes Austin, who's like, hey, podcast. And then he's like, hey, here's Taker. And then he just vanishes. Like, lights go down, Austin's gone. That was weird. Out comes Taker to do his usual slow, boring Taker Taker was never great on promo. Like, yeah, oh great, awesome, Taker. Like, he's one of my favorites of all time, but was never that, he's passable. But he was never great on promo, and just this long, drawn out, just like, I am the Undertaker, and I'm gonna fight Brock Lesnar, you took over. Now, out comes Lesnar, out comes Heyman. As you do. That's what happens. And Heyman's cutting his promo, and, back and forth, they're gonna fight. They don't actually fight, they kind of just, look at each other, and then Lesnar walks away. Now, this whole situation makes Taker look like a face. The same Taker who was randomly appearing and kicking Lesnar in the dick for weeks. Like, doing heel shit for weeks. And just, oh, he's a face again. So that kind of writing is annoying. That they're not, creatively consistent, but that was your opening segment. Whatever. You gotta build your pay-per-view. By the way, Kane not in the building tonight. The guy who is challenging for what should be your most important match, which is for your world motherfucking title. Kane not here tonight. Anyway, your first six-man tag of the evening was John Cena and the Dudleys versus The New Day. The New Day continue to be one of the most entertaining parts of the show, and Cena and the Dudleys is what it is. New Day wins with some shenanigans, and afterwards, because faces can never be you can never defeat a face and have them be cordial about it. They have to get their vengeance, immediately. So they take Xavier Woods with a sick table spot to end that segment. At this point, we learned that Randy Orton is missing in action, more or less. He was taken out by the Wyatts, didn't make his dates in Mexico for that tour. Apparently, according to the news sites now, is that his shoulder is messed up again. So, thankfully, it wasn't a wellness violation, because, he's had a bunch of those. But that kind of gets him out of having to... What the fuck was that, Ziggler? That gets him out of having to have that match at Hell in a Cell, which was going to be Ambrose and Orton versus Braun Strowman and Luke Harper, who's also mysteriously asked him. We'll talk about that in a minute. So apparently this match here, the one you're watching right here, is going to be a rematch on the pre-show at Hell in a Cell, because sure, why not? But we did see Ambrose backstage talking it up with Fit Finlay and Dean Malenko, the Iceman, man of 1,000 holds. That's always cool to see. And then the next match was Sasha and Naomi versus Alicia Fox and Nikki Bella. What was significant here was that of Team Bad and of Team Bella, the two worst ones, Brie Bella and Tamina, were not wrestling. So, thumbs up on that. But unfortunately, we had to see some more Brie later in the evening. Whatever. Alicia and Nikki win that one. Just glad to get more Sasha on Raw, even if she's being stuck in these pointless tag matches, because they don't know what direction they're actually supposed to be, attempting to go in here with this whole Divas Revolution. But I've complained about that each and every week. I don't want to get into that, too much. So, speaking of complaining, Shawn Michaels comes out because, you're in Texas, and I'm sure that they gave him, a gift card to a hunting store to show up. And he's like, yeah, come on, Shawn, you're down the street. So HBK shows up to cut, a promo, he takes some kid's pizza on the way to the ring and has some pizza, which was, I don't know if that kid was a plant or, that's like someone's kid, and that was just, an inside joke or something, but that was weird. And after this thing, he went back and got the same guys like soda and had some soda. It was bizarre. Anyway, he came out and talked for a bit about himself because, whatever. And then that brings out Rollins, who was not happy. And he was saying that he's the best HBK since HBK. And, there was some back and forth here. But where they managed to fail it was there was no interaction. Like, there wasn't even a super kick. Like, could they possibly make Seth Rollins look any more like a chump? Like, granted, the archetype of the chicken shit heel, like, that's his, go-to stuff. But they're leaning way too heavy into it. It feels like a guy who does not even want to be a wrestler is your champion because he's fucking scared of everybody. But I did enjoy that little bit at the end where he says, hit my music, and they didn't hit the music. That was funny. Like, it didn't do any favors for his character, but it made me laugh. But yeah, they've dropped the ball on him, like, so hard. But this led into, the Ryback came out, and, Rollins fought Ryback, and he won, which he should. But they just made him look like such a fucking chump, since he won that belt. He is not a credible threat to anybody, at this point, it's almost believable if Kane beat him. I would be like, okay, fine, sure, because they're just not doing him any favor for that character at all. Anyway, that leads us to this match, which was Ziggler, Cesaro, Neville versus Rusev, Barrett, and Sheamus. Oh, guys, this is like, here's most of your mid-card in one match because we don't know what to do with any of them. And apparently Rusev and Ziggler are still feuding on some level, and this whole thing with Lana and Summer Rae, like, I don't watch SmackDown, but I heard that, they had that little video package for what happened on SmackDown with Summer Rae, and it's like, it's the feud that never ends, and they have no idea what to do with it, which is weird on a number of levels. Like, I think the end goal was a mixed tag match, but obviously with Lana having her wrist hurt, which still does not explain, like, you can hurt your wrist and still be on TV. You were a valet, you were a manager. You don't have to get involved in physical altercations, you can still be on TV. That doesn't make any sense, but I don't think they have any idea what the hell they're doing, so that wouldn't surprise me in any way, shape, or form. But the heels win this one, which means that probably the faces are going to win at Hell in a Cell. But, of course, most importantly, you got Cesaro on Raw. That's like the things I look for on Raw. Did you get in Cesaro? Did you get in Sasha? And did you get in Owens? That's it for me right now. But speaking of which, more old guys. Out comes the Nature Boy, styling and profiling. Although, he didn't even get an entrance. Michaels got an entrance. Austin got an entrance. Flair, currently in the ring. What? Anyway, he brings out Reigns and says that Ambrose and Reigns are going to fight the Wyatts in a handicap match tonight in the main event. Spoiler, that's not what happens. And that brings out the Wyatts. And you would have thought they would have learned from last week in Chicago. Stop giving Roman Reigns the microphone. Like, if you want him to learn to be better at promos, do it at house shows. Don't do it on Raw. It looks bad. He's not good at it. And certainly you put him up there with Bray, and Bray, for all of the nothing he usually spews, Bray can still cut a good promo, even if he's mostly saying nothing most of the time. So that was a fail there. And oh, speaking of which, Eric Rowan is back. Mysteriously. His bicep injury is better, so he's back, but they kind of like, oh, look who's back, and then Luke Harper just mysteriously vanished. Now, there's some stuff going on right now that there was a picture that got Instagrammed by Chris Jericho that had a bunch of guys, kind of, I guess, breaking kayfabe, all wearing unlicensed Luke Harper t-shirts that they bought off the internet, and it was like Jericho and Harper and Bray Wyatt and Reigns in the same picture. Those guys are feuding. It was the Matadors with no masks on, so it was like, hey, it's Epico and Primo, obviously. And that picture came down pretty quickly. But obviously, it's the internet, and the internet is forever. So whether or not he's getting any heat for that, and is it, breaking kayfabe? Is it the unlicensed t-shirts? Apparently, Bray Wyatt was wearing that shirt on the tour of Mexico. So, not sure who's in trouble for what there. But Luke Harper, mysteriously not there, and so the Wyatts are Wyatt and Strowman and Eric Rowan, which is weird. Anyway, next match was Charlotte versus Brie Bella, and I don't have a whole lot to say here out of the usual, but dear God, Brie Bella, if you're supposed to be a heel, stop doing the Daniel Bryan kicks. They're getting you face pops. That's the opposite of what you want to do. Even if your husband says, yeah, go do it, don't do it. It's not. Learn how to be a heel properly. Anyway, we get a thing in the backstage with Paige and Renee Young. Apparently, someone mysteriously attacked Natalya on SmackDown. I don't watch SmackDown. And now we're getting into that, well, all signs point to Paige. Who could it be? And I kind of don't care, but at least I appreciated Paige bringing up a bunch of former divas. That was, as someone who does pop occasionally for nostalgia, that was alright. When nostalgia is done properly, I'm more than happy to pop for it. But I wish he would have mentioned Bull Nakano. That would have been great. Anyway, next match of the night was actually enjoyable, and it was Mark Henry versus Kevin Owens. Now, this was a short little TV match, but Kevin Owens is so good at what Jim Ross calls making the most of your minutes every week. That was 3? That was 3. He's so good at that. He's so good at making the most of his minutes. So yeah, so one of the things that I look forward to on Raw every week is Kevin Owens. It doesn't matter if it's Sin Cara or Kalisto or Mark Henry or anybody. He's having these nice little matches to hopefully build up the integrity of the IC title, which it desperately needs. And it's always enjoyable. Like whatever he's doing, he's really good at it. So I should also mention, holy shit, pop-up powerbomb on Mark Henry. One of the most impressive things I've seen on Raw in a long, long time. So, that match ends, out comes the big pink guy, Ryback, and he powerbombed Kevin Owens, and that was the end of that segment. Obviously, they're going to have their match at Hell in a Cell, and obviously I will have more to say about that match on my Hell in a Cell predictions, which will be up on Friday evening. So, that leads into the main event, which was essentially the Wyatts versus the Shield. Now, not the same Wyatts, obviously because you didn't have Luke Harper, you had Bra. But anyway, this match was alright. I think the crowd was a bit too early to be like, this is awesome, kind of. They're basically having a nostalgia pop for a thing that happened 2 years ago, more or less. And that's not, you knew at some point they were going to have some kind of a Shield reunion, and you know that at some point they're going to have a triple threat match between the 3 guys who were in the Shield. That's going to happen. That is money when it eventually does happen, but, it's kind of inevitable. And they've teased it a few times, in the past 6 months or so. Anyway, match was alright. Match ended with a disqualification with a kendo stick onto Braun Strowman, who then broke it in half. And then, kind of a bunch of brawling on the outside. And Rollins had bailed, because of course he did. He's a heel, and, that's kind of his job. And so, essentially, you got the end of that match was Reigns and Ambrose standing tall over the 3 Wyatts. And honestly, at this point, in 2015, the Wyatts feel like the most ineffectual faction in a long, long time. Like, think of it. They got 3 guys. Well, they have 4 now, but they got 3 big dudes you would think they'd be dominant over everybody, and they certainly have problems fighting off less guys. The way I look at it, the Wyatts are essentially the Spirit Squad with big beards. Like, they're, for being as big and as having that many of them, they're still so ineffectual to, you know, win feuds and go over guys. Like, they're just there to put guys over. And that's, you know, that's the fault of creative, not their fault. But the way they're booked has just been so wishy-washy, you know, 50-50 a lot of the time. So, this Hell in a Cell match is supposed to be the final match between Bray Wyatt and Reigns. Hopefully, the final match. Because they had said that on Raw, you know, like last month. Oh, it was the final match, and it wasn't actually the final match. Anyway, that was kind of Raw. Like I said, there were 6-man tags and old dudes, and that's gonna try to sell you on a Hell in a Cell, like bringing out a bunch of old guys who aren't gonna be there and who aren't doing matches to try to, you know, make your product look more appealing. And it is what it is, but I don't know. So the wrestling action was alright. They really didn't further any, you know, story stuff too much. Not a whole lot of drama. And that's kind of it. So, this week, here's the meat hook here. This week continues the week of this and the predictions, which will be the last 2K15 videos on this channel. When you see this show next Wednesday, you will see these matches being played by the computer in 2K16, so look forward to that. I will tell you that I am your host, Attack Slug, and I'm going to jump cut to the end of this match here. And I will see you next time, right here on this channel. And I'm out.